Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney's woke superhero fatigue destroying their Marvel studio. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Massive story in Variety. Variety is an entertainment industry publication. It's as mainstream as you get, and it talks about the crisis at Marvel, Jonathan Majors' backup plans, the Marvels reshoots, reviving original Avengers, and more issues revealed. They don't talk at all about how Marvel in 2019 put out their first ridiculous woke superhero movie, taking the Marvel brand and turning it over to an agenda rather than just telling stories, particularly stories of actual beloved superheroes told with some semblance of continuity, and then interlocking those stories, creating a larger world, and then eventually getting them all together. So they pushed Captain Marvel out there because they wanted to have a female superhero and they wanted to take advantage of, abuse their power, and release really nothing but woke superheroes to push their agenda. They weren't so concerned about whether or not people would actually like or love or take interest in these movies. They just assumed if they focused on representation, everything would just work out fine. Even if they lost a little money, so they would lose a little, but over time, hey, it's representation, so it's all worth it. As Jorge M. said really well in the comments of the Variety article, that's the thing. Barbie is supposed to be Barbie. Imagine if they made Barbie a steroid-filled, action-packed movie where Ken is the main character. That is what is happening to superhero movies. They are trying to sell it to another audience and failing. Barbie didn't fail. They knew their audience for Barbie. Now the bill is coming due because Captain Marvel is getting a sequel. It's called The Marvels. Report, Brie Larson's The Marvels now tracking for atrocious $45 to $50 million opening weekend. So Disney knows the movie is going to be doing absolutely terribly. And to help deal with that, they released this article admitting a lot of ridiculous production problems. But the thing really causing the failure of the Marvel brand is that no one is excited to see these Marvel movies. From Variety, Crisis at Marvel. This past September, a group of Marvel creatives, including studio chief Kevin Feige, assembled in Palm Springs for the studio's annual retreat. Most years, the vibe would have been confident, even cocky, given how the premier superhero brand owned by Disney since 2009, which they bought specifically, according to Publishers Weekly, because they needed boy-based brands. They've since now changed all of that. It only took them 10 years to put out Captain Marvel and change that. And now look at the results. This occasion was angst-ridden, though. Everyone at Marvel was reeling from a series of disappointments on screen, a legal scandal involving one of its biggest stars, and questions about the viability of the studio's ambitious strategy to extend the brand beyond movies into streaming. The most pressing issue to be discussed at the retreat was what to do about Jonathan Majors, the actor who had been poised to carry the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but instead is headed to a high-profile trial in New York later this month on domestic violence charges. At the gathering in Palm Springs, executives discussed backup plans, including pivoting to another comic book adversary like Doctor Doom. But making any shift would carry its own headaches. Majors was already a big presence in the MCU, including as the scene-stealing antagonist in February's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And he has been positioned as the franchise's next big thing in this season of Loki, particularly in the finale, which airs on November 9th and sets up Kang as the titular star of a fifth Avengers film in 2026. The problem with Jonathan Majors, personally, I think he did it. Everything I see, all of the comments he and his lawyer have made about it really make him look guilty. But even getting this close to guilty in 2023, of course you can't use him for a film that might come out in 2026, because you've got at least 3 years or more for him to need to be on good behavior and not get in trouble again. Do you know what the likelihood of him getting in trouble again is if he gets away with this? It's very high. Quote, Marvel is truly effed with the whole Kang angle, says one top dealmaker who has seen the final Loki episode. And they haven't had an opportunity to rewrite until very recently because of the WGA strike. But I don't see a path to how they move forward with him. Beyond the bad press for Majors, the brain trust at Marvel is also grappling with the November release of The Marvels, a sequel to 2019's blockbuster Captain Marvel that has been plagued with lengthy reshoots and now appears to likely be a failure at the box office. The MCU people know the reason Captain Marvel did more than $1.1 billion at the worldwide box office was because it was seen as a piece of the Avengers story. The Avengers movie before Captain Marvel did much more business than Captain Marvel, and the Avengers movie right after Captain Marvel, a year later, also did much more business than Captain Marvel. But now they don't have any Avengers movies or anything they can do to try to boost this movie, The Marvels. This is all an unprecedented turn of fortune for a company that has enjoyed a nearly uninterrupted string of hits ever since it started independently producing its movies with 2008's Iron Man. That wildly profitable run culminated in the $2.8 billion success of 2019's Avengers Endgame, a high watermark for the studio that has earned nearly $30 billion over 32 films. Replicating that kind of phenomenon is never easy. However, the source of Marvel's current troubles can be traced back to 2020, really 2019 with the release of Captain Marvel. The decision to go a different direction than their core base of fans, their decision to try to remake the brand of what Marvel Studios was all about, to focus only on representation rather than superheroes and storytelling, was the ridiculous mistake they made. They could have done a test. They could have done something outside their continuity to see how well it did, only focused on only representation, and see how that did. If that did well, okay, they could have done more than that. If it didn't do well, which of course it wouldn't have, then they could have had some good information that would tell them, you better not do this. The CEO of Marvel, Ike Perlmutter, did not want to do Captain Marvel. He did not want to go in a direction where if you made superheroes solely for focusing on representation, you would wind up with a weakened, destroyed brand. He explained, you can't make toys based on these characters. People aren't going to be interested in these characters if you don't focus on what people are actually interested in. They refused to listen to him. They overrode his decision. And now, a couple of years later, they've even thrown him out of the company. That's Ike Perlmutter. The COVID pandemic ushered in a mandate to help boost Disney's stock price with an endless torrent of interconnected Marvel content for the studio's fledgling streaming platform, Disney+. According to the plan, there would never be a lapse in superhero content, either with a film in theaters or a new television series streaming at any given moment. But the ensuing tsunami of spandex provided to be too much of a good thing, and the demands of churning out so much programming taxed the Marvel apparatus. Moreover, the need to tease out an interwoven storyline over so many disparate shows, movies, and platforms created a muddled narrative that baffled viewers. Quote, the Marvel machine was pumping out a lot of content. Did it get to the point where there was just too much and they were burning people out on superheroes? It's possible, says Wall Street analyst Eric Handler, who covers Disney. Quote, the more you do, the tougher it is to maintain quality. They tried experimenting with breaking in some new characters like Shang-Chi and the Eternals with mixed results. With budgets as big as these, you need home runs. The Marvels, which opens in theaters on November 10th, will struggle to get the ball past the infield, at least by Marvel's outsized standards. The movie, which cost, they say, $250 million to produce, we've seen reports of it being up to $330 million to produce. And on top of that, they have to add a marketing expense. To give you an idea, they spent $150 million promoting Black Panther in 2018. How much money are they spending to promote the Marvels? We don't exactly know. It's probably at least as much as they spent on Black Panther in 2018. Directed by Nia DaCosta, The Marvels unites Larson's heroine with two superpowered allies, Teyonah Parris's Monica Rambeau and Iman Vellani's Kamala Khan. But instead of seamlessly building on the success of Captain Marvel, this movie resulted in 4 weeks of reshoots to bring coherence to a tangled storyline. Keeping in mind the biggest thing that Nia DaCosta did before they gave her this gigantic project of the Marvels, at least a $300 million project, was this, Candyman. Worldwide gross, $77 million, and somehow they keep saying this is a hit. Wasn't a hit. The production budget was $25 million. That's not terrible. but it's definitely not a hit. Obviously, she was way out of her depth. Eyebrows were raised again when DaCosta began working on another film while The Marvels was still in post-production. The filmmaker moved to London earlier this year to begin prepping for her Tessa Thompson drama, Hedda. Quote, if you're directing a $250 million movie, it's kind of weird for the director to leave with a few months to go. The Marvels has seen its release date move back twice too, once to swap places with Quantumania, which was deemed further along, and again with its debut shifted from July to November to give the filmmakers more time to tinker with it, but that extra time didn't necessarily help. In June, Marvel, which traditionally only solicits feedback from Disney employees, took the uncharacteristic step of holding a public test screening in Texas. The audience gave the film average reviews. But Marvel has never been in the business of being average. Quote, Kevin's real superpower, his genius, has always been in post-production and getting his hands on movies and making sure they're finished strongly. These days, he's spread thin. Feige isn't the only person showing signs of strain. Marvel's entire visual effects battalion, including staffers and vendors, is struggling to keep pace with a never-ending stream of productions. This past February, when the credits rolled at the world premiere of Quantumania, shock rippled through the Regency Village Theater in Westwood over some shoddy CGI. Well, there were at least 10 scenes where the visual effects had been added at the last minute and were out of focus. It was insane. I've never seen something like that in my entire career. Everyone was talking about it. Even the kids of executives were talking about it. The schedule swap with the Marvels had left the Ant-Man sequel in a squeeze, pushing up its post-production schedule by 4.5 months. Marvel films are known for coming down to the wire, given Feige's ability, quote, to foam the runway and land a plane that way. But this level of unfinished was unprecedented and would be noticed in scathing reviews when the tentpole with the $200 million budget opened 11 days after the premiere. Critics weren't the only ones dismayed. Fed up with 14-hour days and no overtime, Marvel visual effects workers voted unanimously to unionize in September, sparking an industry-wide trend. Quote, the year 2023 was the straw that broke the camel's back, says former Marvel Studios visual effects assistant coordinator Anna George. Quote, the pay and long hours at Marvel were the reason we had to start our unionization process there. The conditions were completely unsustainable. Disney's top brass, including the newly returned CEO Bob Iger, was said to be apoplectic about Marvel's visual effects troubles. 1 month after the Quantumania premiere debacle, the guillotine fell on Victoria Alonso, who oversaw the studio's physical production, post-production, visual effects, and animation. While the reason cited for her abrupt firing was her unauthorized role as an executive producer on the Oscar-nominated film Argentina 1985, insiders say Disney was incensed that quality control on its Marvel productions was plummeting, particularly on the ever-expanding TV front. The visual effects logjam had been evident for some time, with some final effects for such Disney Plus series as WandaVision and She-Hulk Attorney at Law inserted after their streaming debuts. That Alonso was busy promoting her art house project, while Rome Burned certainly didn't sit well with Disney leadership. But some internal sources suggest that Alonso was a scapegoat and point to the She-Hulk visual effects issues as a symptom of deeper rot, namely a lack of oversight on script development. In the original arc of She-Hulk, a flashback of star Tatiana Maslany's transformation into her Hulk character didn't take place until episode 8. But after Marvel's Brain Trust watched footage, it realized the scene needed to happen in the pilot episode so that audience could see more of the character's backstory early. That meant the visual effects team was tasked with fixing the mess in post-production. Quote, the so-called bad visual effects we see was because of half-baked scripts, says one person involved with She-Hulk. That is not Victoria. That is Kevin. And even above Kevin, those issues should be addressed in pre-production. The timeline is not allowing the Marvel executives to sit with the material. All the while, Marvel was bleeding money, with a single episode of She-Hulk costing some $25 million, dwarfing the budget of a final season episode of HBO's Game of Thrones, but without a similar zeitgeist bang. The August 2022 series premiere at the El Capitan Theater foreshadowed what was to come 6 months later at the Quantumania bout. The She-Hulk special effects were out of focus in multiple scenes. And just to get an idea of how out absolutely out of control these budgets are. When Marvel did TV series episodes for Netflix, they did several shows. They did 60 shows for a whopping total budget of $200 million. Yes, this was in 2014, but this wasn't in like 1914. The cost for Marvel TV shows now is at least $25 million an episode. The cost then was around $3 million per episode. There are signs that the flood of product is leading people to tune out. Quote, I'm not prepared to call it a permanent fall, but based on the numbers that go with Marvel podcasts, Marvel-based articles, friends who do Marvel-based video coverage, all of these numbers are significantly down, says Joanna Robinson, co-author of the New York Times bestseller MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios, who's a writer and podcaster at The Ringer. Quote, the quality is suffering. In 2019, at the peak, if you put Marvel Studios in the front of something, people were like, oh, that brand means quality. That association is no longer the case because there have been so many projects that felt half-baked and undercooked. And also because they shifted the brand to focus on representation rather than what Marvel is known for. As public criticism mounts, Feige is pulling the plug on scripts and projects that are not working. Case in point, the Blade reboot. With Mahershala Ali signed on for Blade in the role of a vampire, things look promising for a 2023 release date. But the project has gone through at least 5 writers, 2 directors, and 1 shutdown. That would be an official woke shutdown. 6 weeks before production. One person familiar with the script permutations says the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by women and filled with life lessons. Blade was relegated to the 4th lead, a bizarre idea considering the studio had 2-time Oscar winner Ali on board. That's the same thing that happened with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Of course, there was the terrible passing of Chadwick Boseman, but rather than recast him or create a new Black Panther who resembled what you would expect from that character, they just created a bunch of female leads and made the Black Panther the smallest part of the movie. Additionally, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It was Ant-Man, but basically his whole family of Wasp-related superhero people. It just becomes absolutely ridiculous. If you make a movie about a character, the movie has to focus on that character as the main protagonist. Amid reports that Ali was ready to exit over script issues, Feige went back to the drawing board and hired Michael Green, the Oscar-nominated writer of Logan, to start anew. Speculation around town is that the studio is looking to make the film, now slated for 2025, on a budget of less than $100 million, a deviation from Marvel's big spending strategy, with Iger publicly acknowledging the downside of a Marvel TV glut that diluted focus and attention. The keepers of the comic book empire are considering some dramatic moves. Sources say there have been talks to bring back the original gang for an Avengers movie. There's a great little article on this on one of my favorite websites, Cosmic Book News. Here it is. Robert Downey Jr. is said to be already back at Marvel. Sources say there have been talks to bring back the original gang for an Avengers movie. This would include reviving Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, but the studio hasn't yet committed to the idea. Sources say Downey Jr.'s upfront salary for Iron Man 3 was around $25 million. It, of course, would not matter what it cost to bring back characters and actors that fans were actually interested in. It would put a floor under the failing Marvel brand and at least generate some business. But I don't think it's ever going to go back to what it used to be. They damaged it too much. To get success with Marvel or any brand, you'd have to build momentum. And to build momentum, you have to do something good and correctly and consistently on a regular basis. And there's no way Marvel is set up to do that anymore. And even if they did bring back the original Avengers, would that solve Marvel's Majors problem? As in John Majors. When the Quantumania actor was arrested in March, Disney executives insisted that they could afford to play a wait-and-see game, given that the Avengers Kang Dynasty wasn't expected to begin shooting until early 2024. But then Majors was dropped in quick succession by his publicists and managers. In April, other alleged domestic violence victims of Majors began cooperating with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Then, ahead of a key hearing in October, Media outlets, including Variety, obtained a court filing that referenced a police incident in London involving Majors that led his ex-girlfriend to seek medical attention. Making matters even stickier, the ex-girlfriend also worked on Quantumania as a movement coach for Disney, and the London incident took place while Majors was shooting season 2 of Loki. On October 25th, a New York judge denied Majors' motion to dismiss the case, which ensures that the actor will stand trial in late November. His legal team has attempted to keep some material on the case sealed. Recasting Majors is also an option, as Feige did when he replaced Terrence Howard in Iron Man 2. In fact, Marvel isn't afraid to change direction even after making splashy announcements. Still, there was one bright spot in 2023, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which became Marvel's biggest draw of the year with $845 million worldwide at the box office. The fact that it was directed by James Gunn, the guy now running rival DC Studios, was lost on no one. Quote, "With Marvel, it used to be as close to a guarantee as you could get," says a box office analyst at ComScore. So going all in on the budgets made sense. Guardians 3 was a bit overlooked in how successful it was. But that had James Gunn and Chris Pratt, and I think that star power is becoming more important. Then there was Quantumania with $476 million. Anything under $500 million is viewed as a disappointment. The key to reinvigorating Marvel may lie with the superhero arsenal that Disney acquired during its 2019 purchase of 21st Century Fox. That deal brought several blue-chip heroes, such as the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, back under the studio's control. Already, fans are geeking out about next year's Deadpool 3, which unites Ryan Reynolds' Merc with a Mouth with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and a reboot of Fantastic Four slated for 2025. As a bonus, the Fox editions give Feige an opportunity to reimagine the X-Men franchise, the very property he cut his teeth on as a young executive. Now that the WGA strike is in the rearview mirror, Marvel has started talking to writers about bringing the X-Men into the MCU fold. While Feige recalibrates, the rest of the industry is anxiously hoping that Marvel's best days are not behind it. Disney is one of the best possible examples of going woke and going broke, destroying their company for no apparent reason. Their stock now is at around $83. It was as high as $190+ just back in 2021. They are down over $200 billion worth of value because Bob Iger and the rest of the people at Disney refuse to focus on what people actually wanted. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.